Groovy.
すべてのゲームはここに集まる。ゲームの塊、PlayStation。出た。
Hey everybody, Jim here with some more import game recommendations, and today we're going to be taking a look at these fine games for the Sony PlayStation. And before we get started, in one of the last videos I did, some people did not like the fact that I did not show the cover art for the games I was covering. So with that in mind, today we're going to be taking a look at Tobal 2, Gundam, the Battle Master, Touki Denshou Angel Eyes, Hokuto no Ken, and Kitchen Panic. And with that out of the way, let's take a look at these games. First up is Tobal 2, which is obviously the sequel to Tobal number 1, which did get a US release. It's a 3D fighter developed by Dream Factory and published by Squaresoft, and essentially if you played Tobal number 1, you get more or less more of the same in Tobal 2, although the gameplay is more refined. It is a fully 3D fighter, kind of akin to games like maybe Tekken 2 or Virtua Fighter 2, but it definitely has its own unique feel and style, especially visually. The artwork is all done by Akira Toriyama, so his visual style is all over this game. You start out with 10 playable characters, but this game is of note for having the most selectable characters of any fighting game. You can get up to 200 by playing the quest mode. Just like Tobal number 1, Tobal 2 features a quest mode that you can play through, and it's more robust than the first game. You select your character, and then you can go through a town and you can buy items or rest your character and things like that. But then there are a series of dungeons that you can go through, and I think they're all randomly generated. And as you go through them, you encounter monsters that you fight using the exact same controls that you would use in tournament or versus mode. And by defeating monsters, you earn experience and level your character up, and you earn money and various items and weapons and things like that. Also, when you fight creatures in this game, you can capture them, and that's how you unlock them to be played in the versus mode. So that's how you can get up to 200 characters. And while it is fun to try to capture all of the various enemies in the game and have all of them unlocked for the versus mode, a lot of them are fairly useless. For the most part, you're going to want to play as the 10 initially selectable characters, but this is a very fun game. It's a very well made 3D fighter. Again, Dream Factory, Squaresoft, you can't go wrong, especially if you like Tobal number 1. You'd like this one as well. Plus, good graphics and really good sound design. Just an all-around great game for the time. Also, an exceptionally cheap game. If you go looking on eBay, this game can be found for usually between 10 and 15 bucks, which I think is a great deal on this one. Tobal 2, a very fun 3D fighter that never left Japan, and one worth checking out.
Ready? Fight!
Next up, we have Gundam, the Battle Master by Bandai, and this is the first game in the series that would go on to be called Gundam Battle Assault. And while it has a number of things in common with those games, it is a 2D Gundam fighter. It's also quite different from those as well. Those are pretty typical 2D fighters. The gameplay is fairly fast, and it features lots of combos and super combos and things like that. This one plays more like a realistic version of a 2D Gundam fighting game, if that makes any sense. The Gundams themselves move fairly slowly. They're kind of clunky and robotic, which I guess is appropriate because they are giant robots. So it definitely plays a lot slower than pretty much any other 2D fighter you've ever played. But at the same time, you can also dash around the screen using your booster jets, and that speeds the gameplay up a little bit. Other than that, still a fairly straightforward 2D fighter. You have 10 different Gundams to choose from, which are all recognizable from the various Gundam series, and they all have your standard punch and kicks and projectile attacks, which are unblockable in this game. You have basic projectile attacks, and you also have special attacks you can do with beam rifles and things like that. So all projectiles are unblockable, but depending on which Gundam you're using, they can either dodge into the background to avoid those attacks, or they can erect an energy shield to block those attacks as well. So there are ways to get around unblockable attacks in this game. There are also unplayable boss characters, which are just these absolutely massive Gundams and mechs that fill the screen, and sometimes more than fill the screen. You actually have to fly up to hit them in the head. They're very large, very cool looking boss battles. Those characters are not playable, unfortunately, but I guess that's understandable. It would be kind of hard to control a character that doesn't even fit on the screen. This game does feature some fairly good graphics. I would say the backgrounds are kind of static and unimpressive, but the Gundams themselves and how they animate it all looks good, and the soundtrack is very good as well. For the most part, a fairly high energy, heavy metal style soundtrack with lots of screaming guitars, which I like a lot. So all around, this is a pretty damn enjoyable 2D fighter, just very different, definitely slower playing for most other 2D fighters, and this is another one that is very inexpensive. You can find it on eBay for usually between $10 and $20, and I think it's worth that. If you like Gundam, and if you liked the Battle Assault games, I'd recommend giving this one a try. Gundam the Battle Master, very good game.
Wealth and glory to the winner!
Next is Touki Denshou Angel Eyes by Tecmo, and this is yet another 2D fighter with an all-female cast, and I'd say it's one of the better ones. I'd put it up there with maybe like Asuka 120%. Fairly good fighting game, fairly fast-paced, combo-heavy. You have 8 characters to choose from initially, and they all have fairly unique play styles and a wide array of special attacks. One thing that's interesting about this game is that at the start of each round, the characters actually jump into the air into each other, so it's not a choice. You have to immediately jump in and start fighting. So this is a game that I guess pushes more of an in-your-face, fast-paced, combo-heavy style. And again, fairly straightforward 2D fighter, each character with a wide array of moves, and then you have a super combo gauge, and each character has 1 or 2 super combos they can pull off. So as far as 2D fighters go, it's not a very remarkable game, but it is very well made. It is an enjoyable fighting game for sure. The graphics are kind of a mixed bag. For the most part, this game does feature some excellent 2D sprite work, but for whatever reason, they decided to model a handful of the characters in 3D, and they do not look good at all. First of all, 3D modeled characters usually just don't look good in a 2D setting anyway, especially in a fighting game like this where they have to move quickly and there's going to be lots of animations. It just doesn't fit very well. So those 3D modeled characters look pretty bad, but other than that, this is a great looking game with some awesome 2D sprites and great character designs, and the soundtrack is excellent as well. Lots of high energy music to match the really fast paced combo heavy gameplay. Overall, you could pretty much always count on Tecmo to make some decent games back in the day. I believe this is either the year that Dead or Alive came out, or maybe a year earlier that this game was released. So Tecmo kind of wasn't in their kind of second coming, if you will. They were great in the 80s, and they had a lull in the 90s, but then they roared back in the late 90s and into the 2000s. Anyway, that's off topic. Touki Denshou Angel Eyes, very good 2D fighter. Very enjoyable. Also, not a terribly expensive game. I would say between 30 and 40 bucks is what you'd be expected to pay for it. And if you are a 2D fighting fan, then I think this is one you're going to want to check out. Touki Denshou Angel Eyes. It's pretty damn good. Next up, we have Hokuto no Ken Seikimatsu Kyūseishu Densetsu, which is quite a mouthful. You can just shorten it down to Hokuto no Ken. And this is a great game for fans of Fist of the North Star. It's actually my second favorite game ever based on the series, just behind the Arc System Works fighting game. And this is essentially a very straightforward 3D beat-em-up that follows the various chapters and sagas from the manga and anime. So as Kenshiro, you go around punching and kicking everybody in sight, and when they're defeated, they obviously explode into just a bunch of guts and viscera. For larger enemies and for bosses, you can actually go into a quick time button press event, which when you're successful, it launches into a mini cutscene where Kenshiro will do one of his signature moves where he punches the enemy 100 times over, or sticks his thumbs in their head or something like that and their head explodes. All kinds of really cool moves that Kenshiro can do. Obviously his Fist of the North Star style is unbeatable, so very fun game, just a great brawler with excessive amounts of violence, everything you would expect from a Fist of the North Star beat 'em up. So the gameplay definitely gets my seal of approval. Also, some pretty damn good graphics for PS1, kind of a quasi cel-shaded look to it. I almost liken the graphics in this game to the Mega Man Legends games. It has a very similar textures and color schemes to those games. I think it looks really good. I think all of the character designs in this game, all the 3D models, do the 2D characters justice. So good looking game, good soundtrack too. A lot of the music very reminiscent of music from the animated series, and there's actually music directly from the animated series, so that's cool. And so just all around, very, very good game, especially cool for Fist of the North Star fans. Fun gameplay, good graphics, excellent soundtrack and voice work, just all around great stuff for Hokuto no Ken fans, of which I am one. So if you're a fan of the series, I'd recommend picking this game up. It's a great gaming experience, and another one that isn't terribly expensive. Again, if you go look it up on eBay, maybe $30 for this game. At max, could go up to $40, but I would say it's worth it if you're a Fist of the North Star fan. Even if you're not, this is just a very fun beat 'em up. Hokuto no Ken Seikimatsu Kyūseishu Densetsu. Don't worry, I will write that down in the description of the video so you can go and check it out. Plug that into your eBay field. It's a great game. Check it out. Finally, we have Kitchen Panic by Panther Software, which is a developer I'd never heard of before I played this game, and now that I've played it, I'd like to play other games that they've worked on because they did a really good job here. It's a straightforward 2D side-scrolling platformer where you play as a potato in a kitchen that has run amok. There are little evil creatures tearing the kitchen apart, so you'll encounter evil little canned goods and salt shakers and bags of groceries that are basically like thwomps. They'll smash you if they fall on you, so very thematic. The title is very descriptive of what's in this game. It's a kitchen that has gone into a panic. So the environments you'll be in are like on kitchen counters and in the sinks and in cupboards and various areas you'd find in a kitchen. Your little potato guy can run and jump and do super jumps and other things like that. You'll be collecting a whole bunch of different stuff in this game. Vegetables and silver pots, and each stage has one gold pot in it, and the game keeps track of the percentage of things you found in each stage. So if you're the type of person that likes to 100% clear games, then this is a game that's tailor-made for that kind of thing. So very fun gameplay. I love the graphics, very cute designs, very colorful game. A lot of the environments and characters have a very hand-drawn look to them, which I like a lot. So a very good-looking game. The sound design is really good too. The soundtrack is very kitchen appropriate. It's almost like salsa music. It's very energetic and fun sounding music. It matches really well with the visuals and the gameplay. So all around, this is a game that I've been enjoying quite a lot. I haven't finished it yet, but I do intend to finish it and probably do a full review at some point in the future. I love a good 2D platformer. I don't think there are enough of them on the PlayStation, and this is for sure one of the better ones. Unfortunately, this is the most expensive game that I'm talking about today. Copies online go for anywhere from maybe $60 to over $100, which is very steep. But again, if you think you've played all of the 2D platformers on the PlayStation, you might want to give this one a try. It's very fun, very well made. Again, not enough games like this on the PlayStation. Kitchen Panic, definitely a great game. So there you go, 5 Japan exclusive PlayStation games. I hope you saw something you liked, and let me know down in the comments what some of your favorite import PlayStation games are and what are some that are on your wish list. I'd like to know. And until next time, thanks for watching everybody. Take care. Goodbye.